In the far corner of the galaxy, there was a planet called Veltharion, home of the powerful and proud Caraxi Empire. At the center of this empire stood a tall palace made of shining black stone, where the mighty alien queen Virelia ruled. Word was law, her strength unmatched, and for over 100 years she ruled alone. But Virelia did not want to rule forever without a partner. So she announced the Trials of Unitia, a series of challenges to find a champion worthy to stand. By her side, warriors, kings, scientists, even telepaths from distant worlds came to prove themselves. And yet one by one, the queen rejected them all. "They are proud but empty," she once said. "I will not choose someone who hides behind power or titles." 10 long years, the trials continued. The galaxy called her the unreachable queen. Some said she was too proud. Others whispered she was afraid of weakness. But the queen waited, silent and strong. Far away on a nearby moon called Erodin 6, a young human named Dane Thorn worked as a ship mechanic. He was not a soldier. He was not rich or famous. He worked long hours fixing broken engines and cleaning up after others. His hands were always covered in grease. His clothes always smelled like burnt fuel. Dane had never thought of kings, queens, or alien empires. He just wanted to finish his job and go home. But fate had other plans. One morning, a Caraxi transport ship crash-landed near his repair station. It had a broken gravity core and sparks flew from every panel. Dane didn't wait for orders. He grabbed his toolkit and ran inside. Inside, found a crew of injured Caraxi guards and a royal messenger, barely breathing. Dane worked fast, using old tools and even his own jacket to stop a fire from spreading. Within minutes, the ship was stable. The Caraxi crew was alive. The messenger, with blood on his lips, looked at Dane and said, "You must take this." To Veltharion, Dane looked down. In the messenger's hand was a silver baja, symbol of the queen's trial. "I'm not a fighter," Dane said. "I just fix ships." But the messenger had already passed out. 2 days later, Dane found himself standing on the shining steps of the queen's palace, surrounded by tall alien guards with glowing blue eyes. He wore his old mechanic suit. His hair was messy. The other champions laughed at him. "Did you get lost, little human?" said a lizard-like warrior with thick armor. Dane said nothing. He looked up at the palace, unsure why he was even here. Inside the grand hall, Queen Virelia sat on a high throne made of crystal and metal. Her long silver hair flowed behind her, and her golden eyes studied each champion with calm judgment. When it was Dane's turn to speak, he stepped forward, holding the badge. "I don't belong here," he said honestly. "I'm just a mechanic. I helped your messenger, that's all," the court whispered. Some laughed, but the queen raised her hand. "You hold the badge," she said. "Then you have the right to enter the trials." Dane shook his head. "I don't even know what these trials are." "Then learn," Virelia said simply, "or leave." Dane looked at the others. They all stood tall with weapons, armor, and magic. He had only a wrench on his belt, but then he remembered something his sister once told him before she died. Sometimes courage means walking into a place where you know you don't belong and trying anyway. Dane took a deep breath. "Fine," he said. "I'll try." The queen gave no smile. She only said, "Let the trials begin." The first challenge was called the Trial of the Iron Winds. It took place inside a massive chamber where gravity shifted in waves, and metal winds roared like a storm. The test was not just about strength, it was about survival and logic. Most champions ran forward, trying to fight through the wind. Others tried to build shields or use energy blasts. One by one, they were thrown aside or passed out from exhaustion. Dane didn't run. He watched. He noticed how the gravity changed in patterns. He saw how the metal pieces moved in a rhythm. Instead of fighting the wind, he worked with it, moving slowly, using timing and balance. He grabbed a broken panel from the wall and turned it into a glider. Bit by bit, he floated to the end. When he stepped out of the chamber, covered in sweat, and the court was silent. "No weapons?" someone asked. No force? Dane looked up. No need, he said. Just a little patience. Queen Virelia's golden eyes narrowed. It's interesting, she whispered to herself. Very interesting. She did not smile. She did not praise him. But for the first time in years, she didn't reject a champion. Dane had passed the first trial, and the galaxy began to whisper a new name. The human who shouldn't be there, but he was. He wasn't leaving. After passing the first trial, Dane Thorne became the topic of every conversation in the royal palace. A laughed behind his back, calling him the lucky human, but a few started to wonder, was it really Lucker? Something more? Queen Virelia, as always, stayed silent. But her golden eyes followed Dane closely now. She had seen warriors with strength, kings with pride, and scholars with knowledge. But Dane showed something different, a calm mind and clever thinking. He didn't try to impress her. He didn't pretend to be more than he was. That alone made him unusual. The second trial, Dance of the 12 Shadows, the next test was called. It was not a test of power, but of cooperation and strategy. 12 champions, chosen randomly, were placed. Inside a large stone arena filled with moving platforms, disappearing walls, and shifting lights. The only way to win was to reach the center tower together and place their tokens in 12 glowing slots at the same time, if even one person failed. The trial would reset. When Dane entered the arena, he looked around. The group was strange and mixed. A tall insectoid female from Jarnock, a fire-breathing warrior from Volcrum, a nervous robot diplomat, and several other aliens from across the galaxy. Nobody looked at Dane. Some didn't even speak to him. As soon as the trial started, chaos followed. The Jarnocki warrior jumped ahead, trying to lead the group. The Volcrum tried to break down the walls. The robot started calculating positions aloud, confusing everyone. Some tried to go alone. Others shouted orders, but nothing worked. Each time someone acted selfishly or didn't match the timing, the platforms reset and everyone was sent back to the start. The trial restarted over 10 times. Dane stayed quiet and observed. He noticed that the walls responded to sound waves and the light patterns reacted to movement. Timing was everything. When without trust, no one would reach the center. Finally, on the 11th reset, Dane called out, "Stop!" Surprisingly, the others paused. "We keep failing because we're acting like it's a race," he said. "It's a dance, and a dance only works if we all move together." The others stared at him. "You think you can lead us, human?" the Volcrum asked, fire flickering in his throat. "No," Dane replied, "but I can help." "Ever done?" He began to explain what he had seen, how the lights flickered in a rhythm, how the platforms stopped shaking when certain tones were made, and how the movement of one person affected the paths of the others. Slowly, the group began to listen. The robot adjusted its tone to match the rhythm. Jarnocki stopped charging ahead and instead watched the shifting lights. Dane stood at the side, directing without giving orders, only suggestions. Finally, the group moved like a team. One by one, they reached their positions. And for the first time, the 12 tokens lit up together. The center tower opened. The trial was complete. The Queen's observation from high above, Queen Virelia had watched everything. In the past had passed this trial by forcing others to obey, by tricking or threatening their teammates. But Dane had done it differently. It earned respect, not control. "He sees value in others," Virelia said quietly to her advisor. "Even those who ignore him." Her advisor, a tall Caraxi noble with silver tattoos, frowned. "He is still human, weak, slow, and short-lived." "Perhaps," Virelia said. "But he makes others stronger just by being near them. That is not weakness." After the trial later that evening, Dane sat alone in a quiet garden behind the palace. The Caraxi architecture was sharp and dark, but the garden was full of glowing blue plants that made the place feel peaceful. The robot diplomat approached him. "Thank you," I had said. "I calculated a 13% chance of passing the trial without your support. Your actions increased that to 84%. Dane chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." "You helped others when they gave you nothing," the robot said. Dane leaned back against the stone bench. "Because I've failed before. On Earth, during a Mars colony evacuation, I tried to fix something alone. People died because I didn't ask for help. Since then I've learned, you don't win by standing above others. You win by standing with them." The robot was silent. For a moment. "Interesting. Perhaps that is why the Queen watches you." Dane looked up at the stars. He still didn't understand why he was here. He wasn't a hero or a chosen one. But he was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, he belonged in these trials. Meanwhile, in the palace, Queen Virelia sat in her private chamber, holding a glowing orb that showed images from the trial. Dane's calm face appeared on its surface. She had once loved a champion long ago. He was powerful, brilliant, and proud. Dad. And he betrayed her trust for glory. Since then, she had never allowed anyone close. But this human, he did not seek power. He did not hide behind pride, simply tried. For the first time in years, the Queen felt unsure. Was this human worthy? She set the orb down. "Prepare the next trial," she said softly. "Let us see what lies beneath his calm." Dane Thorne stood in the center of a large circular chamber. Floor beneath his boots was made of dark polished stone. Strange markings pulsed with red and gold light. Above him a glowing crystal spun slowly, casting a soft hum through the room. This was the third trial. Unlike the first two, there were no moving parts, no platforms, no partners. Just him alone, high above, behind a thin wall of shimmering energy. Queen Virelia and her royal court watched in silence. "This is the trial of fire and memory," her advisor announced. "Let us see if the human can face what even great warriors have failed to endure." Virelia said nothing. Her eyes remained fixed on the man below. A trial of the mind without warning. The lights in the room flickered. The crystal above Dane glowed brighter, and suddenly the air around him burned like heat waves rising from a desert. He blinked, and the room changed. He was no longer in the chamber. He stood on red soil beneath a broken metal sky. Smoke filled the air. Alarms screamed in the distance. He knew this place. Mars Colony Sector 14. The place where everything went wrong. Dane looked down and saw a child hiding behind him, coughing and crying. He remembered now. This was the day he had tried to fix the escape gate alone. Power was failing. People were trapped. And his sister Tessa was trying to help the others. He thought he could do it alone. He was fast, skilled. He told her to go help the children, while he handled the door. But it was too much. He fixed the wrong connection. The gate's backup system overloaded. The ceiling collapsed. Tessa never made it out. Dane fell to his knees. The trial had not brought him enemies to fight. It had brought his worst memory, his deepest pain. "I know what this is," he said, breathing hard. "You want me to break?" A soft voice echoed from the crystal above. It was not the Queen's voice. It was his sister's. "Why didn't you let me help, Dane?" He closed his eyes. "Because I was afraid. I didn't want to lose anyone. I thought, if I could fix it alone, nobody else had to be in danger." "But I was already in danger," the voice said gently. "You didn't trust me." "I trust you now," Dane whispered. The scene changed again. This time, he stood in front of a mirror. He saw himself, but younger, cleaner, hopeful. "You could leave, you know," his reflection said. "Walk away. To Earth. Forget. This queen, this empire, these trials." Dane didn't answer. "Why are you still here?" Reflection asked. Dane took a deep breath. "Because I don't want to run anymore. Not from my past. Not from pain. Not from myself." The trial ends. The heat faded. The voices stopped. The red sky of Mars disappeared. Dane was back in the chamber. The crystal above him dimmed, then shattered into glowing dust. He stood still for a moment, breathing heavily. Then, slowly, he walked out of the chamber. In the royal hall, the court was silent as Dane entered. He looked tired, his face pale, his hands shaking. But he walked tall, his eyes steady. The queen rose from her throne. For the first time, she spoke directly to him in front of everyone. "You did not fight a beast," she said. "You did not solve a puzzle, and yet you passed." Dane nodded. "Once, it wasn't easy." "It wasn't meant to be," Varelia replied. Her voice was calm, but inside her thoughts raced. She had seen his memories through the trial crystal. She had felt his grief, his regret, his strength. Most champions tried to hide their pain. Dane faced it. "Your past does not define you," she said softly, "but how you carry it that matters." "I carry it with me," Dane said, "so I don't forget who I am." A slow murmur ran through the court. The human had passed 3 trials, each harder than the last. And now even the queen, who had rejected hundreds, was starting to see something different in him. That night Dane sat alone again, this time on the palace balcony. The stars above Veltharion shone brighter than Earth's ever did. Below him, the city glowed with blue and gold light. The robot diplomat from the second trial joined him again. "You survived," the robot said, almost surprised. "Barely," Dane said with a weak smile. "That trial breaks most minds. The Caraxi consider memory a weapon. I believe it now." The robot tilted its head. "You are not strong like the others. You do not have weapons. Yet you remain. I fix things," Dane said. "Even when I can't fix the past, try to fix the future." The robot paused. "Maybe that is why the queen watches you more closely now." Dane didn't reply. But deep inside, he felt something change. He was not just surviving the trials anymore. He was beginning to belong in them, in the shadows, elsewhere in the palace. Queen Varelia stood before a large circular pool of energy. It showed images from Dane's trial, the burning Mars colony, the broken gate, the sister's voice. She touched the pool with her hand. "This one does not hide," she whispered. "He bleeds, but he stands." Her advisor stepped forward. "Are you saying he is worthy?" "I do not know yet," she said. "But I know this. He is not like the others. And that makes him dangerous. Or perhaps necessary." Turned away. "Prepare the next trial," she ordered. "Let us see if the fire inside him still burns when faced with power." Dane Thorne stood at the edge of a wide black bridge, leading to a glowing chamber known as the Crown Room. The sky above Veltharion crackled with lightning, and dark clouds circled the high towers of the palace. This was no ordinary trial. It wasn't about survival, memory, or teamwork. This was the Queen's personal test. No one had ever reached this stage before. In the last 100 years, most champions had been dismissed before making it this far. Some had failed. Others had walked away in pride or fear. But Dane, the quiet human mechanic, had done what none could. Now, Queen Varelia wanted to see his true nature not through a trial of pain or puzzles, but with something far more dangerous: temptation. The Queen's plan in the royal chamber. Queen Varelia sat on her throne, her face calm but thoughtful. Her advisor stood beside her. "You risk too much by calling him." "To the crown room," the advisor said. "What if he seeks power? What if he shows weakness?" Varelia didn't answer for a moment. Then she spoke. "If he wants power, he will take it. If he wants freedom, he will walk away. But if he seeks something greater, ... I will know." Her golden eyes glowed faintly. "This is not about finding a ruler," she said. "It is about finding someone who understands what it costs to carry a crown." Inside the crown room was beautiful. Walls of crystal shimmered with soft light. A gentle wind moved across the floor, and in the center stood a tall golden platform. On top of it sat a floating object. The mirror crowned, it was not a real crown made for the head. It was a device, ancient and powerful. When touched, it showed the truth inside a person's heart, their desires, fears, and dreams. Dane slowly stepped toward it. He had no weapon, no armor, just the same old boots and tool belt. His heart beat fast. He didn't understand this place, but he knew one thing. This was no normal test. Then the voice of Queen Virelia echoed across the room. "This crown reflects who you truly are," she said. "Touch it, and you will be offered what your heart desires most: power, revenge, freedom, or peace." Dane looked up toward the voice. "What if I don't want any of that?" he asked. "Then you will see nothing," she said. "But if something inside you still longs for more, the crown will offer it to you, and then you must choose." The mirror crowns test Dane took a breath and stepped forward. He reached out and placed his hand on the glowing crown. In a flash, everything changed. He found himself standing in a tall tower overlooking Earth. The cities below were shining. Flying machines soared in the sky. A voice behind him said, "You brought unity. You led Earth to peace." He turned. It was him, but older, stronger, dressed in regal clothes. Soldiers bowed before him. Leaders praised his name. Another vision flashed. This time he stood beside Queen Virelia. Together they ruled the Caraxi Empire and Earth as equals. Crowds cheered, enemies bowed. Galaxies followed their orders. Then another vision. He sat alone in a quiet home with a family by his side. Children laughed. A woman held his hand. His face was calm, free from fear and duty. Each vision offered something he had once wanted: inner love, peace. Then the voice inside the crown whispered, "You may have any one of these. Just take the crown. Choose your future." "The humans," answered Dane closed his eyes. He had never wanted to rule anyone. He didn't need to be a hero. He didn't care about being worshipped. What he wanted was to do the right thing, even if it cost him something. He opened his eyes, pulled his hand back, and stepped away from the crown. "I don't want power," he said aloud. "I don't want to rule Earth or Veltharion. I came here because someone gave me a chance when I didn't ask for one. I'm still standing because I refused to waste it." The visions faded. The chamber returned to normal. The queen reacts behind the energy wall. Queen Virelia watched everything. She had seen his choices. She had felt the truth in his heart. She stood. Her voice rang clear and firm. "Dane Thorn, you have passed the fourth trial." The court was silent. One of the nobles whispered he refused power. "Why?" the queen answered. "Because he knows it's not a reward. It's a burden." Then she turned to her advisor. "He is not like the others. He sees clearly, walks without pride. He serves without chains." Later that evening, that night, Dane sat on the steps of the palace. A soft breeze moved through the open halls. He looked up at the stars. He didn't feel victorious, just tired. The robot diplomat walked over and sat beside him. "You turned down power," the robot said. "Why?" "Because I don't want to be someone I can't recognize anymore," Dane replied. The robot beeped softly. "Then perhaps the queen will finally recognize you." In the queen's private chamber, Queen Virelia stood alone in her chamber. Looking at a painting of an old battle, she thought about her past, about her failures, about the many champions who came before and what they had tried to take. But now, this human had refused it all. She whispered to herself, "He is still dangerous because he is free." And for the first time in years, her heart felt something strange: hope. The palace of Veltharion was never silent. Lights glowed through its tall crystal walls. Servants walked through the halls. Nobles whispered secrets, and the royal guards stood like statues. But tonight, something felt different. The wind outside was hotter than usual, and inside the royal court, a fire was growing quietly, not from flames, but from jealousy. Dane Thorn had passed for trials. Human with no armor, no powers, and no title, had done what powerful champions failed to do. And now many in the court were angry. The seeds of hatred. High Counselor Zelvar, one of Queen Virelia's oldest advisors, stood in a dark chamber with other Caraxi nobles. "This is madness," Zelvar hissed. "The queen favors a human, a weak outsider. Cannot allow this." "He turned down power," one noble said quietly. which makes him more dangerous, Zelva replied. Power given can be controlled, but a man who wants nothing, he is harder to stop. The nobles nodded. It seen Dane pass every test with humility. But instead of respecting him, they feared what he might change. Veltharion must be ruled by Caraxi blood, Zelvar said. We will protect our empire by any means. He raised a small device in his hand. Tomorrow, during the 5th trial, we end this story. The morning of fire, the sun rose over the shining towers of the capital. Birds with silver feathers flew in circles above the queen's balcony. In the trial arena, soldiers prepared the next challenge. Dane stood near the center, alone once again. His clothes were dusty, his face tired, but his eyes calm. Queen Varelia watched from above, her hands resting on the armrests of her throne. She didn't speak, but her gaze never left Dane. Today's trial was supposed to be simple. A battle. Simulation, where each champion faced a moving energy construct. The goal wasn't to defeat it with strength, but with clever thinking, but Zelvar had other plans. The sabotage as the trial began, the energy construct activated. It took the shape of a large beast, made of glowing lines and light. Dane stood ready, remembering everything he had learned from the previous challenges. But suddenly, the beast changed. It roared louder, its light turned red, and its body grew. 3 times larger than planned, its movements became wild and violent. It no longer followed trial rules, it was trying to kill. The court gasped. This isn't part of the program, shouted one guard. Varelia stood at once. Shut it down, she ordered, but the beast didn't stop. The human stands alone. Dane dodged left as the beast's arm slammed down. The floor cracked under the weight. Sparks flew into the air. He didn't have weapons. The arena didn't allow them. 8. This was supposed to be a test of the mind, not survival. Dane looked up at the control room. He saw the panic on the technicians' faces. The controls were frozen. He understood now. Someone had changed the trial. This was no accident. But he didn't run. Instead, he grabbed a broken pipe from the ground and faced the beast. He didn't need to win. He just needed to survive long enough for the truth to be seen. He ducked, rolled, and climbed the arena wall, using small ledges to stay out of reach. The beast roared again, shaking the arena with its rage. Dane used his knowledge of machines to lure the beast toward a metal pillar. As it attacked, he jumped clear, and the beast's energy claws hit the structure. Shorting out some of its circuits, it slowed just for a second, but it was enough. The queen's fury from above. Queen. Varelia saw everything. Her anger burned hotter than any flame. She knew her trials were dangerous, but never meant for murder. Who did this? She demanded. The guards searched. One of them found the small device hidden behind the main control panel. It's a command override chip, the guard said. High security access only. Varelia turned to her advisor, Zelvar. His face was calm, but she saw the fear in his eyes. It was you, she said. Zelvar tried to speak, but the queen raised her hand. You tried to kill a guest of the crown, she said. A champion who has done nothing but prove his worth. Nobles said nothing. Some looked away. Others stared in shame. Guards, she said, remove him from the court. Zelvar was dragged out, his voice full of curses. He'll ruin us. That human will tear the empire apart. But Varelia didn't look at him again. Her eyes turned to Dane, who was now kneeling in the dust, breathing heavily. Hands scraped and dirty, but still alive. After the trial later, Dane sat in the palace healing chamber. A soft mist healed the small burns on his arms. He was quiet. The door opened. Queen Varelia entered, alone. You should not have survived, she said. Dane looked up. I almost didn't. She stood beside him, her expression unreadable. Someone wanted you gone. I figured that out when a 10-ton monster tried to step on me. There was silence for a moment. You fought, she said. Not for glory. Not for attention. You just refused to fall. I've been falling my whole life, Dane replied. I just got tired of it. Varelia looked at him, truly looked. At him not as a test subject or a champion, but as a person. You've passed more than a trial today, she said. You've passed the test of loyalty. The court changes the next day. The palace was different. Whispers about Dane changed from doubt to respect. Some still didn't trust him. Others began to believe. A few even started calling him a name. In the Caraxi language, Talron Votha, the one who stands when others fall. For the first time in over a century, the Veltharian palace gates were open to the people. Blue banners waved high in the wind. The great crystal court was cleaned, polished, and glowing. Nobles, warriors, and visitors from many planets filled the seats of the grand hall. They were all waiting to see Queen Virelia's decision. After 5 trials and endless whispers across the empire, everyone knew the truth. A human had come farther than any champion before. Dane Thorn, simple mechanic from Earth, now stood at the center of the galaxy's attention. A crown without chains, Dane stood alone on the ceremonial platform. Dressed in clean black robes given by the palace, still looked like himself, quiet, humble, uncertain, but there was a strength in his eyes now that wasn't there before. He looked up at Queen Virelia as she walked toward him. Her crown shimmered with golden light. Her silver cloak trailed behind her like flowing water. The hall went silent. Virelia stopped in front of him and spoke so that the entire court could hear. You came to this palace by accident? Entered these trials without preparation. Yet every step of the way, you proved something rare. Dane said nothing, just listened. You did not seek glory, she said. You did not chase power. You fought not with strength, but with heart. You failed before, but you never stopped trying. The nobles watched quietly. Some still doubted. Others waited with curiosity. A few bowed their heads in respect. Virelia said, I must make a choice, not just as a queen, but as the voice of 1,000 worlds. The offer, she raised her hand, and a servant stepped forward, holding a new crown knot made of gold, but of black metal mixed with crystal. It was smaller, lighter, and strangely beautiful. This is not a crown of rulership, Virelia said. It is a crown of bond and trust. It does not command, it shares. She looked into Dane's eyes. I offer you this not as my servant, not as my king, but as my equal. Not because of what you are, but because of who you chose to be. Gasps echoed in the hall. A few nobles stood in shock. An alien diplomat dropped his datapad. Even Dane's own breath caught for a moment. Equal? He asked, his voice low. Yes, Virelia said. You will walk beside me. No chains, no title, just a shared path. The humans answered. Dane looked at the crown. He remembered the trials, the pain, the fear, the moments he almost gave up. He thought of Earth, of his lost sister, Ave, the broken colony on Mars. He thought of how far he had come, not for power, but to become someone better than who he was before. I'm not noble, he said softly. I'm not perfect. Virelia nodded. Neither am I. He took a deep breath. Then yes, he said. I'll walk with you. Crown is shared, Queen. Virelia turned and placed the crown gently on Dane's head. It glowed faintly, not bright, not grand, but real. The court erupted into applause. Some still remained seated, unwilling to accept it. But many stood, clapped, or bowed their heads in silence. The human had not taken the crown. It earned. It a new in the weeks that followed, things began to change. Dane joined Queen Virelia in meetings, not as a ruler, but as a voice of reason. He spoke plainly, honestly, and listened more than he talked. He helped fix old alliances, worked with engineers from different planets to improve trade systems. He even repaired a broken starship port with his own hands. People respected him not for what he wore, but for what he did. Some still called him outsider, but most called him something else now. The equal. A quiet conversation one evening. On a high balcony under the stars, Dane and Virelia stood alone. I never thought I'd be here, Dane said, looking out over the glowing city. Virelia replied softly. He looked at her. I watched you walk into every trial without fear, she said. Even when you were afraid. That's the kind of strength this empire has forgotten. You could have chosen someone easier. I didn't want easy, she said. I wanted real. They stood in silence for a moment. Dane smiled. I do. You regret choosing a human? Virelia shook her head. Not for a second. A message to the galaxy later. Queen Virelia sent a message across the galaxy. In a time of pride and division, she said, I chose not power, but partnership. Not tradition, but truth. A human stands beside me not because of blood or birth, but because of the choices he made. The message ended with both of them standing together, Dane without armor. The queen without her crown, side by side, and across the stars. Many listened. Final words. The alien queen who rejected every champion had finally chosen someone, not a prince, not a warrior, a human who fixed things, a man who failed, learned, and kept walking. A man who defied her not with rebellion, but with kindness. And in doing so, he didn't just win her trials, he won her trust, and with it, helped light a new future for two worlds.